Hey guys, it's Dr. May. How are you? Today, I'm going to talk about some important relationship topics. So the main two things we're going to focus on are boundaries and self-esteem in relationships. And we're going to use a tool called the relationship grid, which was established by a psychologist named Terry Real. And he does a lot of couples work with relationship life therapy. And you can look him up. He's a really interesting guy, but I want to share it with you myself in kind of a quick format just to familiarize you with these concepts. Okay. And what I want you to do is to think about where you fall in this grid, and maybe even where your partners or other people in your life, important people in your life, such as parents, children, friends, fall into this grid. Okay. And then once you realize where you're at, you could kind of figure out how you could start to move toward a healthy balance in the middle. Okay. Now, I realize this looks a little bit complex, but we're going to break it down one piece at a time, okay? So by the time we're done with this video, you're going to have a much better understanding of how this all works, okay? So here we go, all right? So first, we're going to look at the horizontal plane, okay? So we're going to either look at being walled off or boundaryless, okay? So this is about unhealthy boundaries. So there's either too much distance between you and other people or too much closeness where it's overwhelming, okay? So on the one extreme, it's kind of like a dialectic, right? You might be walled off. So you might be so afraid of being engulfed by other people or overwhelmed by them and their emotions and their experiences that you protect yourself by putting up kind of like emotional or even physical walls. Maybe not like a literal wall, but maybe. I guess it depends on your setup. So this is kind of protecting you, right? Just like a wall protects you from being inside your house from the outside elements, right? So when you're in your house, you know, the animals don't get in, and the wind and the rain and stuff like that, right? So when you bring up your emotional walls, you're protecting yourself from the emotional weather of other people, okay? And sometimes this is very adaptive. And other times it can get too extreme, where you're so blocked off from other people that you're considered to be protected, but not connected. So the benefit is you feel somewhat safe, but the disadvantage is you don't feel like you're having that close connection with somebody, right? So kind of pros and cons, right? On the other hand, if you're boundaryless, you let in too much from other people, which could be very overwhelming. You might soak up their feelings. You might be a bit of an empath or a codependent. You might kind of take on too much and you get overwhelmed. And on the flip side, you might be overwhelmed with your own emotions. And if you don't know the coping skills to manage them, they might spill out onto other people, and perhaps in ways that make other people uncomfortable. All right. So that's what boundaryless is about. So our goal is to put it somewhere in the middle, right? So kind of dialectically find that middle. So healthy boundaries would be the middle ground. Okay. So here you're protected and connected, right? So you have some boundaries so you could kind of, you know, express yourself moderately and let in other people moderately, but also, you know, feel some connection so you don't get overwhelmed either way. And, you know, it feels a whole lot better. Okay. So that's what we're aiming for, the healthy amount of, you know, connection and protection. Okay. So let's look at the other vertical plane here. So on the one hand, we have grandiosity or being one up. And on the other hand, we have shame or being one down in a relationship. Okay. So this has to do with our level of self-esteem. And on both planes, we have a sense of contempt. So contempt is like when you feel like you're looking down your nose at people, and despise or hatred going on. Okay. And both sides have contempt, but with grandiosity, you're directing your contempt toward others. And with shame, you're directing the contempt toward yourself. Okay. So starting with grandiosity, it's kind of like when you think you're better than people, when you kind of see yourself as great and special, or, you know, more superior in a certain kind of a way. And therefore you kind of in your mind or out loud put other people down. All right. And that's your way of preserving some level of self-esteem, but it's not a healthy self-esteem. Okay. Shame, on the other hand, is you're placing yourself way too low. You're acting like a worm, like you're just beneath everybody. And you're directing a lot of contempt toward yourself. There's a lot of self-hatred going on. You might feel inferior to people, one down, less than, and, you just, feel like you're not even worthy of connection. Okay. So those are the two opposing poles, but they do have that contempt in common. Okay. And sometimes if you feel shameful, sometimes you might flip to the other side and become grandiose. So you might have both things going on. They're really two sides of the same coin. Okay. So what's a healthy level of self-esteem? So healthy is when you're more in acceptance of yourself and who you truly are on the inside, accepting your flaws and your good points, understanding that you're human. You could recover from mistakes without throwing yourself into shame or blaming other people too much. You don't think you're much better than people, and you don't think you're much worse than people. You kind of see yourself as somewhere in the middle, okay? And that's a healthy level of self-esteem. There's things to feel good about, and there's still stuff to work on. So it's a balanced view, right? But it's healthy. That's what we're aiming for, okay? So now we're going to break it into the quadrants, okay? So we're going to combine the walled off and boundaryless and the grandiose and shame, right? And we're going to get 4 different combinations. All right, so let's do the first one first on the upper left. So walled off and one up. So what does that look like? Okay, so that's when you feel like you're above people. You're kind of looking down your nose at people. And because you think they're below you and you don't want to associate with the riffraff, so to speak, you put up walls between you and them. Because if I was too close to them, I might soak up some of their inferiority and some of their negative qualities, and it might infect me. So I put a wall off between myself and those other people, okay? So it's kind of like the bubble says, you don't deserve to be in connection with me. You're not worthy of me, right? So I don't want to associate with you people. In some cases, it can even be like a class thing, like I'm upper class and you're lower class, and I just want to separate myself from you. And even racism, like let's say I'm white and you're black and I think I'm better than you, so I don't want to connect with you that much, right? I hate to say it, but it's true, right? It kind of can work that way. But it also could work in just regular everyday relationships too, and just be your style, especially in a more intimate relationship, like a couple relationship. So some of the qualities that could come up, being entitled, nasty, passive aggressive, or just indifferent, not even caring, right? So I'm not sure if this sounds familiar to you for yourself, or maybe someone you know, right? You might be able to think of some people like this, right? Okay, let's move on to the next one. So walled off and one down. Okay, so we did walled off and one up, now walled off and one down, or shameful. Okay, so this is when you feel so bad about yourself that you don't even feel like you're worthy of connection, that you put a wall between yourself and other people because you're ashamed to have people even look at you. And if they saw the real you, they probably would despise you. So you don't even try. It just feels like you're so afraid people are going to see that badness in you that you put a wall up. Okay, does that sound familiar? So like the dialogue bubble says here, you might think things like, well, it's not going to work. Why should I share what's on my mind? It's useless. And besides, I don't deserve love anyway, right? So that the woman is cutting herself off from her partner because she just doesn't even feel like she deserves a connection, right? So you might feel disengaged, you might be depressed, and just resigned and withdrawn, okay? So it's sad because you feel bad about yourself and you're distancing yourself. So you're not even giving yourself access to the support that might help you, okay? All right, third quadrant, here we go. Boundaryless and one up. Ooh, that's a tricky one, okay? So this could be kind of problematic sometimes. So this could happen in an abusive relationship, kind of like the picture on the left. So if I'm feeling like let's say I'm the guy, or I'm superior to my wife or my girlfriend, I might totally unleash on her. And every time I think she doesn't give me the right kind of caring or love or do things right or read my mind or whatever, I just might let loose and tell her what I really think and be really nasty and abusive, right? And I'm not even going to care about what she thinks. I'm just going to unleash all my feelings and disgustingness on her, right? So in school, if you're in a bullying situation, bullies see themselves as one up and they have poor boundaries because they're being aggressive toward other people. they're bullying the one they feel is below them. And, with their words, with social media posts, with physical aggression, with taunting. And so that's a boundaryless way of demonstrating their, grandiosity or their superiority, right? And this could be really problematic, right? So if you've been on the other end of that, it's really painful. And it's also painful if you're on that end, because you might really feel out of control if you're behaving that way, okay? All right, so a final quadrant. So this is boundaryless and one down, or shameful, okay? So this is kind of the type where you might be very outwardly needy and clingy and desperate. And, like you might do anything just to get someone to love you. You might beg for attention, beg for the love. You might try to get people to affirm you and might try to control their opinions of you because you can't do it on your own. You need that outside affirmation from somebody. It's related to the prostitute archetype, and you can look at my video on that for more information, but basically it's like you'd almost be willing to sell yourself out just to get the love and attention you're craving. It's a very powerless position to be in. It's very painful. And a lot of times, if you're the pursuer in the relationship, being desperate for that attention, the other person responds by distancing because you become overwhelming. So it becomes this dynamic of the pursuer and the distancer. And the more you pursue, the more the other person distances. And the more they pull away, the more you pursue. And it becomes like a vicious cycle. And it's one of those relationship patterns that's often addressed in couples therapy. Okay? So this is like manipulative, codependent, attention seeking, desperation. Okay, so all those adjectives kind of apply here. All right, so we looked at all the four of the quadrants, right? So think about be honest with yourself, if you are in any of those quadrants, right? And now we're just gonna review what it means to move back to a healthy pattern, which is in the intersection of those lines and those quadrants, right? And a lot of your coping skills could be used to help bring you there, such as the stress tolerance skills to manage stress, right? Emotion regulation skills to manage your emotions so you don't unleash on other people, and so you're willing to feel it. Mindfulness, just to get yourself in touch with your emotions and to be mindful of your urges without acting on them, right? And getting that boundaryless thing going, right? And also getting in touch with yourself increases your self-acceptance and self-esteem and compassion. So all that helps to bring you into that health, right? So all the skills are interrelated and can help in this process. All right, so let's just look at this final one. Okay, so healthy boundaries and self-esteem is the intersection. All right, so if you're a DBT person, your interpersonal effectiveness skills apply really well here. So if you have healthy boundaries and self-esteem, chances are you're being pretty skillful at using the dear man, give, and fast skills. Okay, if you're not familiar with DBT, dear man skill is an acronym for basically assertively asking for something that's a more complex request, okay? Give is keeping good relationships, and fast is keeping self-respect. So putting all those pieces together is about healthy boundaries and self-esteem, okay? And when you're in relationships with these things, you're able to be assertive, respectful, you could appropriately give and receive in the relationship, and you're able to moderately assert your needs and wants to the other person and receive their needs and wants too, and be responsive to each other, right? So all the stuff kind of fits together nicely in that middle intersection. Okay, so did you like it? It's cool, right? I really like that relationship grid. So check out Terry Real for more information, but just wanted to show that to you just to give you another lens to look at your relationships with and your role in your relationships. All right, so hope you liked it, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye guys.